Garland off. Prabhu's going to wear it. That's the good news. Thank you. The good news is that every lesson kind of stands alone. So even though we're doing lesson 2 tonight. Oh, and we need a mic.
Yeah, I'm just kidding.
Okay. Good. Even though we're doing just one lesson of this. Whoops. Is this on?
Yeah.
Hare Krishna. Oh, yes. Even though we're doing just one lesson tonight from the series, I think you'll get quite a bit out of it. It's like a history lesson. I call it the Founder Acharya principle. And I have a script here, and I'm going to be reading from the script, and Mataji's going to read the slides. And then at the end, we're going to have questions and answers. So, and we're going to go for 90 minutes, so we'll roughly to 6:30. And then I'll leave, and then you can carry on with this is your Sunday feast program, right?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay. Good. And someday you'll have a temple, right? By Krishna's grace? Yes. Okay. All right. The Founder Acharya principle. So, in lesson 1 in Burlington last night, we looked at the Guru principle. What a Guru is, the relationship between initiating and instructing Gurus, and how Srila Prabhupada wants all his followers to mature and become Gurus in their own right. In lesson 2, that's tonight's lesson, we'll look at the Founder Acharya, a very special Guru, right? The foundational spiritual master of all Gurus and disciples in his line, with a focus on our own Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya. Okay, it's shedding, so when it starts to shed, and I take it off and I put it on the line. There we go. Oh boy, I'm going to have a mess. I hope you have a vacuum cleaner here. All right, let's see. Yeah, okay, Mataji.
Although Srila Madhvacharya accepted Diksha and Sannyas from one Achyuta Preksha Swami, since Madhav received most Shiksha from Srila Vyasadeva, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur listed Madhavas as Vyasa's disciple in the Brahma Madhav Gaudiya Sampradaya. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta called his list the Bhagavad Parampara, a line of Bhagavad instructors.
Yeah, and that reference is from the Harmonist. That's the Gaudiya Math English language journal. So, you know, when Prabhupada first published his Gita in 1960, at the end of 1968, then the few devotees who were with him noticed that opposite the first chapter page started on the right side of the book, and then on the left side, there was something, it says, the disciplic succession, and they had never seen that. So they said, what's this? And Prabhupada explained that we're coming in a whole line, going back to Krishna. Krishna, Brahma, Narada, Vyas, and then who's next in that list?
Madhvacharya.
Madhva. But what a gap. Vyas was 5,000 years ago, but then to go to Madhva, you got to fast forward to like 1100 something AD or CE, as they say. So, because it's a prominent Shiksha line, it's not a Diksha line. Okay. Following Srila Bhakti Siddhanta, in his purport to Srimad Bhagavatam 1-18, Srila Prabhupada writes, quote, there are 2 types of Bhagavats, namely the book Bhagavat and the devotee Bhagavat, unquote. And in his commentary to Srimad Bhagavatam 10.2.31, Prabhupada highlights that devotee Bhagavat or Acharya, whose pure example embodies the book. Oh my God, Brother Harishari Prabhu has this lecture series, he calls it Srila Prabhupada, the living Bhagavatam, the living Bhagavat. Because everything he did was just, he was a walking Bhagavatam. Everything he did exemplified what was in the Bhagavatam. As we'll see in this lesson, it is from the Acharya Sampradaya culture, a culture of exemplars, that the founder Acharya principle emerges in our Gaudiya Vaishnava line. Now what follows are that founder Acharya principle's seeds. So we're going to look at 4 seeds of that founder Acharya principle in our Gaudiya Sampradaya. I'm a little older now, so I'm a little fussy. I'm just picking the leaves off my lap. Here we go. There you go. And here's a wrapper for you. Okay, thank you. Now I think I'm happy, right? All right, so the next slide.
An organizational seed.
No, we're gonna have Mataji read it.
Okay.
Oh, unless somebody else wants to do it.
Yeah, that's fine. An organizational seed.
Okay. Who's that?
Six
Six
Goswamis.
Goswamis.
Yes. So, go ahead.
Is it pronounced as
Circa.
Circa?
It means Latin for around. Around.
Circa 1545, Lord Chaitanya's chief disciples, the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, founded the Vishwa Vaishnav Rajya Sabha with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. Next.
Oh, sorry.
Later identified as a gathering of devotees who worship the king of all Vaishnavas in the world, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Yeah, that's from Sajjana Toshini, Bhaktivinoda Thakur's journal. So, it's an organizational seed. After Mahaprabhu disappeared, then the 6 Goswamis started, they started something, they organized something to continue Mahaprabhu's teachings. As the Sabha's most prolific writer and philosopher, Srila Jiva Goswami also emerged as the group's most skillful organizer. Do you know where Jiva is in that picture? Yes, far right. He was the youngest. For example, he founded Vrindavan's famous Radha Damodar temple. Have you been to Radha Damodar temple? Yeah. Jiva Goswami founded, where he established a library of all the Goswamis' works. Sri Jiva had those works copied and then dispatched his 3 best students, Srinivas, Narottam, and Shyamananda, to Bengal on the first Gaudiya Vaishnava book distribution party. It's a whole drama, if you remember that, what happened to that party. The Goswami Sabha, dedicated to articulating, preserving, and distributing the Lord's teachings, planted the founder Acharya principle's organizational seed. So you think of that phrase, founder Acharya. It's a compound. And the first part of the compound is English, and the second part is Sanskrit. And there's organizational suggestion. Founder means somebody who found something. So the Goswamis started a sangha, if you will. Like this is a sangha. Somebody organized this. It didn't happen by chance, right? A lot of planning goes into this. So the 6 Goswamis, they started this Vishwa Vaishnav Raj Sabha. That's like the original name of the Hare Krishna movement in the Gaudiya line. Okay, so that's the first seed. Then, anybody know who that is?
Vishwanath Chakravarti.
No. Rupa Goswami. Yeah. All right, Mataji.
Yes.
A philosophical seed. In 1552, Srila Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu identified the fourth principle of devotional service as Sadhu Vratamanu Rathanam, which Srila Prabhupada later translated in the Nectar of Devotion as following in the footsteps of great acharyas or teachers under the direction of the spiritual master.
Yeah. So, and earlier on page 21 of the Nectar of Devotion's introduction, Srila Prabhupada writes, in our mental activities, we should always try to think of Krishna and try to plan how to please him, following in the footsteps of the great acharyas and the personal spiritual masters. So the philosophical seed is that there's a difference between regular gurus and great acharyas. There's a oneness and there's a difference. And there's always a oneness and a difference. Are you all right, Prabhu?
I'm okay.
Yeah? He's a yogi. You're like, okay, good. Bhakti yogi, good. In lesson 1, we learned that, quote, initiating and instructing spiritual masters are equal and identical manifestations of Krishna, although they have different dealings, unquote. In ISKCON, for example, initiating and instructing spiritual masters may deal with their disciples differently, as parents and relatives do. As a child may see his parents and relatives as everything at first, then with their help matures to see them in perspective. So a disciple may initially see his initiating and instructing spiritual masters as everything, then with their guidance matures to appreciate them in relation to great acharyas. You know, it's natural when a kid is 2, 3, 4 years old, he thinks his parents are like God, you know, because he's totally dependent on them. But then as he matures, and as they, with the help of teachers, educate the child, they see, oh, there's more, there's other people too. And we'll devote a whole lesson to that. Parents, teachers, gurus, yeah, we'll see about that later. To help us understand this philosophical seed of the founder Acharya principle, we will now hear how the Acharya Sampradaya culture, the line of prominent Shiksha exemplars who make up our disciplic succession, inspired one famous disciple to beg his great guru to bring him closer to their foundational Acharya. So now this is a story, it's probably well known to you, but Bhakti True Maharaj, when he was still with us, he reminded me that this could be a cultural seed for your seminar, Suresvara. The story of Narottam Das Thakur and Lokanath Goswami. It's a very touching story. Okay, so that's the cultural seed. Next. And that's
A cultural seed.
Well, let me just say. So that's supposed to depict Narottam on the left, and Rupa in the middle, and Lokanath on the right. So you have disciple, great acharya, and guru in that order. So, okay. Let's see if there's any more. No. Okay. Before the Gaudiya Vaishnava saint, Srila Narottam Das Thakur, was born, Lord Chaitanya told Lokanath Goswami, quote, within a short time, a prince named Narottam will become your disciple. He will be a gifted devotee, full of love and devotion, and empowered to save the fallen conditioned souls from hellish life. His enchanting, beautiful kirtan will melt even wood or stone. Close quote. That's from the Narottam Vilas. After the Lord left this world, however, Sri Lokanath was so distraught that he withdrew from public view and vowed never to accept disciples. He just wanted to do Nirjan Bhajan and to just retire and, servant separation. Although Mahaprabhu had already told him, somebody's going to appear and he's going to be your disciple. So that's coming up. Nevertheless, later in Vrindavan, when Sri Jiva noticed that Narottam was drawn to the saintly Lokanath, Sri Jiva told Narottam to approach Lokanath for initiation, although everybody knew that Lokanath had made that vow, wasn't going to accept disciples. But Jiva said to Narottam, look, I can see your heart is with Lokanath, so you approach him for initiation. But as ardently as Narottam approached Lokanath, just as adamantly, Lokanath refused. Resolved nonetheless, Narottam, the son of a king, vowed to become Lokanath's menial servant and took to cleansing the area where the saint performed his early morning ablutions. Yes, please, cell phones off. Thanks. Yeah, Narottam, he was a royal, as they say now. He was of royalty. But he knew that because he had that royal birth, that what comes with that? A lot of privilege and a lot of pride. So he was very advanced, also spiritually. So he wanted to get rid of that false pride, that royal pride, and just do something menial, even though, for Lokanath, even though Lokanath said, no, I'm not accepting disciples. So absorbed was so he took to cleansing the area. He knew when Lokanath rose. He knew when he went to the stream, to evacuate and bathe, and so he just made everything nice, the earth and the water, and yeah. So absorbed was Lokanath in his solitary Krishna bhajan that he scarcely noticed someone was daily cleansing his ablution area. Finally, after an entire year had passed, Lokanath decided to find out who was so conscientiously cleaning up after him. The next morning, he came earlier than usual, so he decided to play a trick on whoever was doing it, and he came earlier, before Narottam got there. He came earlier than usual and hid behind a tree. This is what it says in the Narottam Vilas. When Narottam approached, Lokanath saw who it was. Narottam, it's you! He wasn't happy, because he had already told him, I'm not accepting disciples. His identity exposed, Narottam fell at the saint's feet and begged to be accepted as his disciple. Lokanath refused at first, then later relented, remembering Mahaprabhu's prediction and conquered by the pure devotion of saintly Narottam. So he became Lokanath's, so to speak, only child, only disciple. Come on in, Manaji. Have a seat. So, now here's where the dramatic cultural seed comes in. Although Srila Narottam Das Thakur became the only initiated disciple of Srila Lokanath Goswami, in Song 17, verse 4 of his famous song collection, Prarthana, we sing Prarthana songs every day. We just sang one. Shri Guru Charadapada, that's Prarthana. Gurudev is also in Prarthana? I forget. In Mayapur they sing Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Daya Karamo. That's Prarthana. And who else? No one else. I know there's more Prarthana we sing, I think. Oh, whenever someone disappears. Jayandilo Premadhana. That's Prarthana. Yeah. So in Song 17, verse 4 of his famous song collection, Prarthana, Narottam longs for Lokanath to bring him to their ultimate shelter in the disciplic succession, Srila Rupa Goswami. Because when Rupa Goswami wrote that Bhadrapurnima Sindhu, he was recognized as the chief, even though he wasn't the oldest or the most renounced, but he was the most expert at relishing the mellows. of bhakti. So let's look at the key lines of the song. Can you sing in Bengali? Any Bengalis in the house? Are you Bengali, bro? Okay.
I don't know the meter.
Can I, Prabhu, can I?
Okay, Bengali?
Yeah.
Okay, we got a Bengali. This is
Prabhu Lokanath Kabe Sange Jaivan Jalavi
Shirupera Pada Padme Mora Samari. Good. We got the real Bhav there. Bengali Bhav. Now what does that mean? Quote, when will my... Oh, is that in there? Yeah. Go ahead and read that.
When will my Lord and Master Lokanath Goswami take me with him and place me at the lotus feet of Srila Rupa Goswami?
Prabhu Lokanath, when will my Prabhu, my Lord and Master, take me with him and place me at the lotus feet of Srila Rupa Goswami? He's begging his Diksha Guru to place him at the lotus feet of the founder Acharya of the Gaudiya Sampradaya.
Wow.
Wow. Yes. In his commentary to Sri Chaitanya Chaitamrita Adi Leela, chapter 5, text 203, Prabhupada writes, quote, Srila Rupa Goswami is described as the Bhakti Rasacharya. So the phrase founder Acharya, I mean, English wasn't even Bengal yet, because the British hadn't come and ruined everything yet. So, but he was called the Bhakti Rasacharya, or one who knows the essence of devotional service. His famous book, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, is the science of devotional service. And by reading this book, one can understand the meaning of devotional service, unquote. That's from Prabhupada's purport to that verse. So he was the chief. As, quote, the chief of the 6 Goswamis, Srila Rupa Goswami was Narottam and Lokanath's Bhakti Rasacharya, the master most expert at relishing the moods of pure devotional service to Lord Krishna. And as Narottam's Diksha Guru, Sri Lokanath had the pleasure and privilege of bringing his disciple closer to Sri Rupa, the leader of the 6 Goswamis, Sabha, and the foundational spiritual master of all the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. So just think of ISKCON today. That's one of the main duties of initiating and instructing spiritual masters in ISKCON, is to bring their disciples closer to Prabhupada, closer to the founder Acharya. That's what it means to be an authentic Shiksha and Diksha Guru in ISKCON. Someone who enhances, enriches, and deepens our relationship with Srila Prabhupada. And it's, as Bhakti True Maharaj pointed out to me, it started right here, right? In the time just after Mahaprabhu left. Although, quote, Rasacharya may sound similar to founder Acharya, by Lord Chaitanya's inscrutable will, the organizational, philosophical, and cultural seeds sown early for, quote, founder Acharya would have to wait another 3 centuries within a crucible, a pressure cooker, a crucible of disgrace before final seeds arrived to conclusively establish the founder Acharya principle. Because within 100 years after Mahaprabhu disappeared, what happened to the Gaudiya Sampradaya? It became infested with so many imitation. Bhaktivinoda Thakur identified later 13 Upasampradayas. Owls, Bowls, Saki Bekis, Gauranga Nagaris, Prakrita Sahajas, it became just to the point where no self-respecting Bengali person in Bengal would even touch the Gaudiya Sampradaya. It became totally corrupted. This is Kali Yuga, right? All right, so we had to wait 300 years until Bhaktivinoda Thakur came. All right, and he gave the crowning seeds to the founder Acharya principle. Here we go. There's the Thakur in his, looks like his chief magistrate garb, right? Let's see, nope. Too early. In the late 19th century, the great Gaudiya Vaishnava Acharya Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur identified and exposed more than a dozen counterfeit Gaudiya Vaishnava groups who, after Lord Chaitanya's departure, so disgraced Gaudiya Vaishnavism that most educated and cultured persons shunned and dismissed the cult. It became a cult. Like sometimes people accuse us, or they used to, not so much now, but they used to accuse us of being cult members in the 60s and 70s. Not only did Srila Bhaktivinoda restore Mahaprabhu's original teachings, as well as the glories of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, he also conceived of a mission to propagate Krishna consciousness globally, thus helping to fulfill a 16th century scriptural prophecy. Quote, "In every town and village, the chanting of my name will be heard." Where did that appear? Anybody know? Where did that appear? What? Chaitanya Bhagavad. Yeah. Okay. Now in the 1880s, so fast forward hundreds of years, when reports reached Srila Bhaktivinoda of a rising Western interest in classical Indian culture, the Thakur sent a copy of his Sanskrit work, Sri Krishna Samhita, to the American transcendentalist Ralph Waldo Emerson. Thakur was really, he was in touch with trends. So he heard that Emerson and Thoreau and American transcendental were interested in Vedic culture. Right on the back of the Gitas we distributed, we have quotes from those people, right? Emerson got a copy from the Thakur. This is the original. He's the original bridge preacher. He was bridging the gap between classical Indian culture and Western culture. So he sent a copy to Ralph Waldo Emerson, famous American poet and essayist and philosopher. Emerson gratefully acknowledged receiving the book, but confessed his inability to read Sanskrit. He didn't know Sanskrit. Bhaktivinoda thought he knew Sanskrit. He assumed that because they're interested in Gita, that they must know Sanskrit, but they didn't know Sanskrit. They were just reading these bogus English translations. Sir William Jones and all these people they had contests to see who could debunk Vedic culture. They were such rascals, right? But he told the Thakur, he wrote him a letter, he said, I don't know Sanskrit. That inspired the Thakur to write a longer work presenting Lord Chaitanya's pastimes and teachings, including a 47-page introduction in English titled Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, His Life and Precepts, famous, which he sent to where? Somewhere in Canada. McGill. And he also sent it to Oxford. He sent it to, when I was presenting in Australia, the devotees in Canberra, the capital, said, I'll show you the university where Bhaktivinoda Thakur's book is. Yeah, okay. In 1896, the year of Srila Prabhupada's birth, Srila Bhaktivinoda sent that book to various Western universities. But it was a Bengali work by the Thakur. He wrote in Bengali, Sanskrit. You got to give this poor fellow an alternative. You got to give him a soccer ball or something. Yeah, seminars are boring, for kids. All right. We're going to serve prasad later, don't worry.
Prabhu, please excuse us, I'm taking the small kids for class.
Yeah, please.
Sorry.
Thank you so much for doing
I'd
that.
love to sit.
All right. In 1896, the year of Srila Prabhupada's birth, Srila Bhaktivinoda sent that book to various Western universities. But it was a Bengali work by the Thakur. He wrote in Bengali, Sanskrit, English, and Hindi, I think, too. maybe Oriya. But it was a Bengali work by the Thakur, published in 1900 as Harinam Chintamani, yes, that contained the crowning literary seeds for the founder Acharya principle. Yeah, it must have been one of the last books he wrote. It was 1900. And he only lived to 1914, so anyway, it was quite a book. In Harinama Chintamani, Srila Bhaktivinoda describes three kinds of great gurus in a disciplic tradition. The first is the Sampradayera Adi Guru, the primeval guru of the tradition, directly enlightened by the Lord himself. The second are the Shiksha Guru Pratishtita, greatly revered preceptors who keep the tradition's teachings intact over long spans of time. But when the Thakur identified the third guru, he described him in the superlative. So here's the literary seed. Prabhu, want to read that?
Literary seeds. However, the Adyacharya, or original guru of a disciplical line, is appropriately worshipped and respected as the Guru Shiromani, the topmost crown jewel of the spiritual masters. His perfect philosophical conclusions are to be followed by all in his succession. Any contrary instructions will not be accepted.
Yes, close quote. The stage was set for the founder Acharya's seeds to bear fruit. And that translation was by Banu Maharaj from the Bengali. Now, so once the Thakur published that, the stage was set for the founder Acharya's seeds to bear fruit, because nobody had ever heard of that English-Sanskrit compound before, but now it's about to bear fruit. The seeds bear fruit. In the 1880s, while envisioning a worldwide Krishna consciousness movement, Srila Bhaktivinoda revived the Vaishnav Raj Sabha that the Goswamis had started, and launched a Bengali spiritual journal, Sajjana Toshini, which means for the satisfaction of the devotees. And there it is. And that's the, that's the harmonious, that's the English language version that Srila Bhaktivinoda. Okay, so 4 decades later, Srila Bhaktivinoda's illustrious son, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, reimagined the Sabha as the Gaudiya mission. So it was the Thakur that envisioned the whole thing. I mean, the Thakur, because it had predicted that we'd go to every town and village, Priti Priti Achayata Nagarari Gram, as Maharaji said. But it wasn't happening because of all the Upasampradayas that stalled everything for hundreds of years. So the Thakur, he wanted to get that going. Okay, let's go to every town and village. But to do that, we've got to have a whole movement. This is not the work, the mission of one guru. We got to have a whole worldwide, as Prabhupada said, he was the pioneer of the Krishna consciousness movement in the modern age. So he envisioned a worldwide network of gurus. He even conceived of the GBC. Because, do you know where that came from, the GBC, where he got the idea? From the British Indian Railways, they had a GBC, a governing body commission. So the Thakur thought, well, we need a governing body to manage all these areas, we say zones now, and to make sure the gurus keep them in line, You gotta have a management. So, but he knew his time was running out, so he famously, as you know, prayed for a ray of Vishnu to help him manifest this vision, and he got one of his sons, Bimal Prasad Dutt, became Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And so he took his father's vision and he manifested it in something practical, the Gaudiya mission. and transformed his father's journal, the Sajjanatoshini, into the Harmonist, an English language periodical with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's scholarly disciple Professor Nishikant Sanyal as his co-editor. And why did Srila Bhaktisiddhanta decide he had to publish in English? Because English was becoming the rising star, it was becoming the dominant language in the world, because of the British Empire, basically. So Bhaktisiddhanta was always wanting his educated disciples to learn how to preach in English. Timed to coincide with the launch of the mission's brand new Calcutta headquarters, the October 1930 Harmonist carried the first of a three-part series by Professor Sanyal about the, quote, Gauriya Mat. I would say Gauriya Mat. It was in this article that the founder Acarya phrase, seeded for centuries, finally fructified. So here's where we see the phrase manifest. And Prabhu's going to read. You got it? Okay, here it is. It's a little difficult English because it's complicated syntax, but I think you'll get the gist of it. Go ahead.
The Gauriya Math is also identical with its founder Acharya.
Notice two Y's.
Acharya. The associates, followers, and abode of his divine grace are limbs of himself. None of them claim to be anything but a fully subordinate limb of this single individual. This unconditional, causeless, spontaneous submission to the head is found to be not only compatible with, but absolutely necessary for the fullest freedom of initiative of the subordinate limbs.
Yeah, this is Professor Sanyal describing Srila Bhaktisiddhanta as the founder Acharya of the Gaudiya Math. And it's similar to things Prabhupada would say later about ISKCON, that ISKCON is my body, right? And he's the founder. You are all the limbs of my body, he would say to us. And the BBT is my heart. It's a similar kind of metaphor. Okay. During the Gaudiya Mission's finest hour, the first Vaishnav preaching expedition to Europe in the 1930s, yeah, Bhaktisiddhanta dispatched a few preachers to England and Germany. So he was trying to manifest his father's vision to take it outside of India that was locked in the Sanskrit culture, for years. You got to get this prophecy going, take it all over the world, preach in English. During the Gaudiya Mission's finest hour, the first Vaishnav preaching expedition to Europe in the 1930s, the book Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's leading preachers took with them was Sri Krishna Chaitanya, written by Professor Nishikant Sanyal and edited by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. The work was written with sufficient breadth, depth, and excellence to impress the intelligentsia of the West. In its front matter, the elaborate table of contents highlighted the intimate connection between the Adi Gurus, the original founders of the different sampradayas, the primeval preceptors of the four Vaishnava sampradayas, and the sampradaya's four founder acharyas who revitalized their disciplic successions in the Kali Yuga within recorded history. Here's how that translates visually. So that was a whole bunch of words I just said, but it's easier to understand when you just see this. So, how important are founder acharyas to all the, okay, here we go. So there it is. See, there's Rudra, the Rudra Sampradaya, Lord Shiva. And in the Kali Yuga, Vishnu Swami revitalized it. And then you see the four Kumaras, the Kumara Sampradaya, and Nimbarka revitalized it in the Kali Yuga. And then Lakshmi, Sri Sampradaya revitalized by Ramanuja, Brahma, and then Madhva. We're in the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya. We're in a special aspect of that Sampradaya, Mahaprabhu. So, how important are founder acharyas to all those who follow them? Let's take a look. Good job. Okay, want to read that?
Founder acharyas provide the core identity and foundational relationship for everyone in their disciplic lines. Srila Ramanujacharya, Srila Madhavacharya are outstanding examples of the preeminent position of the founder acharya in the Guru Parampara.
Like even today, even though Ramanuja appeared in 1017, they just celebrated the millennial in 2017, right? If you happen to meet a serious Ramanuji today, and he happens to know English, and he also speaks Tamil, and you ask him, Prabhu, who are you? Adiyan, Ramanuja Dasan. I am your servant, a servant of Ramanuja. But Ramanuja appeared 1,000 years ago. So, but he's identifying with Ramanuja. And all the Shiksha and Diksha gurus that have come and gone since then, their job is to enhance, enrich, and deepen their disciples' relationship with Ramanuja. To help them understand his books, worship his Murti, execute his Vishishta Dvaita mission. Sound familiar? Whose books do we read every day? Prabhupada. Whose Murti do we worship?
Prabhupada.
Whose mission do we execute? Prabhupada. Same idea. So we should take note of that. How is ISKCON going to stay together for 10,000 years when we all identify as Prabhupada Nugas? And we love our Shiksha and Diksha gurus because they enhance, enrich, and deepen our relationship with our founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada. Since the Gaudiya Mat was but an extension of the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta knew many would consider him presumptuous, proud, if he personally announced himself as the Mat's founder Acharya. He didn't do that. If people asked him who he was, he didn't say, I'm the founder Acharya. Because they would think that he's identifying, he's putting himself on the same level as, Vishnu Swami and Nimbarka and Ramanuja and Madhva. So he knew that people would criticize, right? So he didn't do that. And plus, you're going to see, we presented lesson 4. He could see, because he was a ray of Vishnu, he could see what was going to happen to his own organization, the Gaudiya Mat. It imploded, 6 years after the 1930 Harmonist article was published. The Gaudiya Mat finished after he disappeared, and they disobeyed his instructions, and the whole thing fragmented. Yeah. Okay, for the written record, however, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta did allow himself to be referred to, by his scholarly disciple, Nishikant Sanyal, as the Gaudiya Mission's, quote, founder Acharya, within the pages of the Harmonist, very discreetly placed there. Okay, so, yeah. Now, in lesson 4 of this series, that's 2 more lessons. They're all going to be published on or posted on the ISKCON Toronto website as they give them. So even though we're only doing 1 here, if you're interested to see more, just go onto the website, and as we do them, you'll be able to follow along the whole progression. Or you can pick up what happened last night in Burlington too. We did lesson 1 there. In lesson 4 of this series, we'll see why Srila Bhaktisiddhanta would later leave this world and his founder Acharya title behind. He foresaw what would soon befall his own institution. As well as the one disciple, he knew what was going to happen to his institution, but he could also see that there was going to be one disciple who would be ready, willing, and able to revive the Gaudiya Sampradaya as the founder Acharya of a fresh branch of Lord Chaitanya's mission, far, far away from Mother India. Guess who that was? So, now, we're gonna do Q&A now. Oh, okay, we got a lot of time, actually. And so, but before we hear your questions and comments and reflections and doubts and, you know, as I told the devotees last night, when I give these, when I read my script, I deliberately don't say everything. I kind of provoke people so that they'll want to ask, what do you mean by that? You know, and how do you know that? And but we can document everything. So let's review so before I take your questions let's review the main learning outcomes for this second lesson, the Founder Acharya Principles. So Prabhu, you can.
Lesson 2, the Founder Acharya Principle, Learning Outcomes. By now, we should be able to explain how our disciplic succession is a line of Bhagavad instructors.
Right. It's not a line of initiators and initiated. It's a line of instructors and instructed.
Identify the organizational seat of the Founder Acharya Principle.
Yeah, we should know who started organizing.
Identify the philosophical seat of the Founder Acharya Principle. Identify the cultural seat of the Founder Acharya Principle. And identify literary seeds of the Founder Acharya Principle. Recall how the Founder Acharya phrase appeared in the 1930s. Identify the foundational role of the Founder Acharya in the Vaishnava Sampradayas.
Okay, so as I mentioned last night, when I ask for questions, there's a tendency, a very human, natural tendency, to want to ask about anything and everything in creation. That's what happens. But I just put these up there to give you a reference point. Try to frame your questions and your comments in terms of these learning outcomes. Let's focus on what we just heard. Okay, thank you very much. And now, Q&A. This is where the fun starts, right? Wait a minute, the fun hasn't even started yet. Well, I thought you were going to ask a question.
No, I was just holding the mic.
Oh, he's the runner.
I'm the runner.